What skills do you or your friend have that are very terrifying? Story one. My friend has something like 98% recall in all conversations. He often catches people lying about the most ridiculous crap, and since he tells them exactly what they said, they get nervous and uncomfortable. I keep telling him to stop doing that to people. I'm like that. Unfortunately, I usually have to play dumb because my ability to recall information in conversations freaks people out. I not only remember conversations, I also remember facial expressions and my surroundings. My area of awareness is larger than most. I also have an ability to recognize faces I might have met once or just seen on the web in passing. Few people realize this about me. As I've learned to tone it down as it makes others so uncomfortable, only the hubby knows. Story 2. A friend of mine got terrifyingly good at throwing pennies. Like, his aim was perfect. I was sitting across the room one time, and this MF whipped a penny at me and got me square above my chest dead center over the cleavage. I had a tiny Abraham Lincoln imprint for a week. It was so impressive that I couldn't even be mad. Another dude I went to high school with taught himself to do impressions and throw his voice. This dude was able to sound like all the teachers, and he used his powers for chaos. It was really funny. He got away with saying a lot of wild crap simply because he was so good. Story 3. Back when I was in like sixth grade or something, there was this boy, and I don't know if he was human. One, he was faster than everyone in the entire middle school and high school. He often liked to walk very slowly, though. Two, he had infinite stamina. You know those track running things at the gym that tested how many laps you could do? Yeah, he literally didn't stop. And in fact, he made it till the end of gym, which lasts 4 to 5 minutes, I think. Three, he was a genius. He had advanced in every class, never got a test wrong, and was basically a human calculator. Four, this guy had all the girls, and it was crazy because most men couldn't even get one. In fact, they liked him, even though he never actually did anything with a girl before. Five, there was one day when the football team got so annoyed about him they thought he looked better than them, and all 30 or so of them decided they would shove him in a locker and make fun of him. Like I said, I'm not sure he's even human. Seriously, I don't. He ended up punching the locker door so hard that it broke the lock, and he single-handedly knocked every single one of those boys out in a matter of seconds. He later moved out of school in like a month of school, but geez, that guy isn't a superhuman. I don't know what is. Story 4. Going off track in the wilderness for hours at a time. In the Australian wilderness. Even at night. But look, all the dangerous critters are scared to death of you, and once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun. It's also very unlikely some mad, murdering killer will be waiting for you because not many people come by that often, so they'd wait a long time for a victim. It's more likely you'll find someone dumping a body, not that I have, but I'm just saying that is way more likely than a mad killer sitting in the hot Australian sun all day, off the track, waiting for a victim to wander on by. Story 5. I can catch anything thrown at me even if I'm not directly looking at the item thrown or there is no warning. Someone will throw something at me, and I'll be looking in the opposite direction. I won't even know someone has thrown something until I look in my hands and see I've caught an object. Everyone in my immediate family thinks it's hilarious, so I'll often have small pieces of food or objects like pens thrown at me just because they want to see me catch them effortlessly. I played a lot of catch and handball as a kid, so maybe that contributes to it. Story 6. Predicting someone's future based on their behavioral patterns. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but since it has happened with 4 different people now, it kind of freaks me out. And I don't mean saying vague stuff like, your current relationship will end soon, but more like specific details on how things will go down step by step. I usually tell them this. They ignore me and call me crazy because that stuff would never happen. Then days, weeks, or months later, it happens exactly as I described it would. I periodically live in a world where I want people to prove me wrong because being right would be a negative thing in said situations. So far, nobody has ever proven me wrong in this area. Story 7. I can manipulate people very easily. I've never done so maliciously, but due to intense social anxiety or AVPD, I am hyper aware of how people will react to what I say. And I tend to rehearse conversations with people I expect to socialize with so as not to offend them or make a bad impression. I'd say around 90% of the time the conversations and scenarios go exactly as I orchestrated them too. Not proud of this at all. Whenever people tell me that I have good vibes or an approachable demeanor, I cringe and die inside. Story 8. By utilizing your darkest and deepest feelings, traumatized continually because you unaware of slipping about your weakness and fears. I confront you with all that, and you're now in the corner crying to stop or panicking or mental breakdown of losing your crap and never recover because I'm laughing and I'm cleverly throwing unlimited of scenarios into your head by using your words of expressions, the body language you're giving, all the personal information you have shared in days past, and if accessible, encourage you to confront your fear by touching items, etc. It's not bullying, it is called facing your fears and confront them by breathing mindfully and pacing yourself. Story 9. I have the ability to sometimes fade out of people's existence that I'm there altogether. It's funny when it's just, oh wow, you snuck up on me, when I made no effort to do so, but mine is worse. It can become so depressing when they forget they're talking to me mid conversation and all of a sudden they ask me to hold on. But then I'm left hanging. When I ask them what it was they were going to say, they start over with some long explanation, or they might even forget entirely what they were talking about with me. This isn't just family, but good friends. It's not fun being the equivalent of a random daily thought. Story 10. I know how to stab you without you feeling it, but as soon as you sit down, lie down, or remove an article of clothing, you'll bleed to death, depending on the method. Although it takes a lot of work and closeness to put it into action and doesn't work well on fat people. Theoretically, I haven't tried it, but know how to do it. I'm also creepy good at tracking down people in my friends' lives that are harming them and getting remote revenge on my friends' behalf. I bought some of those send awful thing to your enemy's services and sent them to a doctor I tracked down because the doctor showed unprofessional conduct when dealing with my friend, a patient. I also tracked down a friend's landlord who was evicting them with no notice. Powerful guy, it'd take more than some unpleasant mail to get to him. I went the blackmail route, but the cow's record is clean. He's just a jerk. Disappointing. Story 11. So it is not like scary, but my friends hate it so much. So I'm the quiet guy in the group. So when we are at someone's house hanging out, I'm always so quiet till that moment that I see that everyone have done a mistake at that night. And I start roasting them one by one, and I only say one word or one sentence. They call me the silent devil. And one word, man. I think it is normal, but they said no, so F it. I will roast everyone. Story 12. I'm extremely good at lying or feigning ignorance on the occasions when I do it. Fortunately, I don't want to do it, and would say that I try to be truthful almost to a fault, as a general rule, but the times I've felt panicked or otherwise chickened out and pretended to have no involvement with something that I definitely do, I am apparently so convincing that it works just about every time, even on the people who know me the best and would be most likely to see through me. Sometimes I wonder what kind of person I would be like if I decide to be manipulative and straight up deceitful, because I have a suspicion I could take that quite far. Story 13. I'm able to remain scary calm in emergency situations. It's because I have asthma, lol. I grew up being told all the time to stay calm during an asthma attack, because panicking would just make it worse. I went to a special camp for asthmatics where they taught us to stay calm during an attack. My asthma was really bad, like living in an oxygen tent at one point bad. So I took this stuff to heart. So now as an adult, when there's an emergency, my brain goes into hyper focus. It's like I instantly know exactly what to do, and my brain focuses on the execution of the plan. It's a weird feeling. I'm the person you want sitting in the emergency exit row on the plane. And I often do try to sit there because I know it's a good place for me to be if something happens. Story 14. People don't understand that a site like Facebook and other social media is nothing more than a big Excel sheet with a mask to filter data and only show you parts of it at a time. When I started working, I found a marketing research job. Really, all it was is scrubbing thousands of people's social media to find out what they like where they go and what they would be interested in getting. We were able to see everything, even if you mark it as anonymous or private. I turned into a whistleblower for a couple different things, and the company is no longer in business. But I still know how to see everything, and I don't for obvious reasons. But I was able to see your address, full name, who you hang out with, private pictures, everything. Story 15. Remembering every single detail in a conversation. So I was talking to this girl online. We talked for a solid 3 hours, and then after a while, because I got busy, I didn't get to talk to her again. Met her through online gaming, by the way. So after a month or two, when we talked again, most of the topics we started to talk about, I already knew what she was going to say, and I remembered what she said before. Said the same thing she was going to say, even birthdays and star signs, etc., etc. She thought I was a creep, and I've been stalking her. Story 16. Remembering small details about a conversation from a long time ago. We had a Halloween party where two of our friends met. They had previously never met. They did not see each other again until a Halloween party the next year. My one friend opened with something like, "Nice to see you. How are your parents liking Philly? They've been there for 6 or 7 months now, right?" Our friend had totally forgotten that she'd mentioned her parents moving to Philly. Part of what made it creepy was the way he brought it up, but it was still pretty creepy anyway. Story 17. I studied Arabic for 2 semesters in college to fulfill my foreign language requirement. Thought it was cool, so I continued a bit after I graduated on my own. Never became fluent or anything, but plenty of people were weirded out by that. One coworker actually did say it was creepy. Someone nonchalantly asked me if I ate pork, sneakily trying to see if I'm a Muslim. I'm not. Or, of course, the FBI list comments. At my college, I could see grade distributions, and I saw Arabic gives a lot of A's, so I picked that one. And it honestly seemed more interesting to me than Spanish. So it was a double win. And I had to take it to graduate since I got a GED, so never satisfied the foreign language requirement there. I explained that so many goddamn times. Because every time someone found out and it came up, they would say, "Why Arabic?" After I gave them the explanation, they would say, "But why Arabic?" I had a close friend who asked that to me so many goddamn times, I swear. He was a bit close minded. Story 18. Networking. I honestly feel like a mafia boss half of the time. Everyone in my company knows or has heard of me. I also tend to know details of each worker's personal life or past history. My boss has been working for the company for 28 plus years and will find me, low entry worker, to get a hold of someone or get something done. I've had managers from different departments come to my floor to ask me what I think of so and so. What skills do they have? What is their education like? What is the unofficial word on this or that? This is simply a weird skill I have where people just tell me everything about themselves, their life story, goals in life, what they think of this department or that boss. It is a bit ridiculous. Last week, boss. "Hey, I heard M can't come to the work gala. Why is that? I would love for them to come." Me. "I can't say, but I'll check on it and see if I can get Em a ticket." One phone call and 10 minutes later, I told my boss, "Emma's situation is resolved, and I got her a ticket to the gala." Story 19. Sometimes I feel like my skills at finding people online are a little too good. I once saw a super hot guy at a club, didn't speak to him, got his name, nothing, and within an hour had found him online. Another time, a friend of mine told me he went out with an Australian girl but wouldn't tell me her name or show me photos. Within 15 minutes of leaving his house, I had found her online. I found out where people lived, what buildings or landmarks are in view from someone's apartment in that photo on their Facebook. What style is the building? Their entire relationship history, marriage licenses, traffic misdemeanors. If it's possible to find something out about someone online, or by connecting the dots, I can do so much too quickly and easily. Story 20. Reading body language or learning to be over-observant. Over a year and a half, I got really good at knowing the habits, favorite foods, favorite drinks, just stuff like that of my friends and the people I sit with at lunch. If you bring it up in conversation, it can be kind of strange. One day I was on the other side and I was complaining about losing 5 minutes of lunch at school on a snowy day. And one of my girl classmates said, "Yeah, that's when you go to the bathroom." And that is when I go to the bathroom because I can get to my locker and classroom quicker and because the lunchroom was loud. But it's kind of weird. Story 21, my Asperger's syndrome, gives me a lot of creepy abilities. Sharp memory. Literally learned that most people don't remember specific conversations they've had weeks prior in most cases. Strong senses, as a child, I could determine the smell of burning as well as the fuel source. House has barely avoided burn down at least once because of it. I'm also the one that usually picks up on spoiled food or milk first. And being relatively honest, I almost immediately inform the other tenants in the abode. Extreme interest. If I get invested into a fandom or topic, there's a chance I'll bury myself into it far enough to be able to cite obscure facts like how Twilight Princess is the only game not to feature actual Octoroks in the Zelda series. Literalism. In most cases, this is harmless. But for people who are aware of it, they have to choose their words a bit wisely, as they know there can be awkward or creepy results. When someone says, Keep an eye on your brother. For example, I end up stalking him on Facebook instead of periodically checking in on him. Echolelaya. This for me shows itself as reciting quotes from media at what seems like random. They have their own intrinsic meanings to me. But when I'm trying to communicate verbally with limited functioning, the inability to articulate my point can be terrifying for people who need to talk with me. Egocentrism. I literally have very little ability to put myself in others' shoes. A lot of people find this unnerving, or at least the many clear expressions of concern have told me this, on principle, as this understanding, when pushed to extremes, leads people to believe that autistics have little empathy. This is pretty untrue, but still, being around anybody perceived to have low empathy will put images of psychopaths into their minds. Overstimulation triggers. This is especially unnerving when you first meet someone with autism. If they don't tell you, they don't always, you may be walking on eggshells. You can set someone off with the wrong sound or scent. Even wearing perfume or ordering buffalo wings could send us over the edge and bring us to a state where we perform shutdown procedures, which range greatly in volume and movement. Story 22, lockpicking. I was with a group of friends and we went to one of their houses. They somehow got locked out of their house and didn't have a key, so no way to get it. He was going to call a locksmith, so I quietly offered, I could just save you the money and pick the lock. I happened to have some pricks in my truck, so I got them and unlocked the door. I got a few weird looks from my friends after that. Just because I know to pick a lock doesn't mean I do it illegally. Edit. Now that I think about it, some of the stuff I know, taken out of context, is creepy. I studied forensic anthropology because of those classes. I'm familiar with anatomy. I can determine causes of death, gender, and approximate age by looking at bones, what guns and a rough distance they were used, weapons, bladed and blunt, and fire does to the body. Also, the best chemicals to dissolve flesh and bone. I promise I'm not a serial killer. Story 23. Predicting or guessing things. For some reason, I can just guess things right the first time. For example, the most common time it happens is when there's a draw for something like the FA Cup, where all the teams are numbered, and balls with those numbers are dropped into a bowl and pulled out one by one. For some reason, I'm very good at guessing which number will be picked next, and as a result, I'm good at guessing which teams will play each other. My family finds it incredibly weird, even though I'm sometimes wrong, but apparently I'm just good at guessing? Story 24. Late to the party, but anyway, I have an extra helping of intuition about people, and especially regarding guessing things like birth order, sibling ages, and gender, and the relationships people are in. Some people are easy reads, some I can't read at all. Aside from my intuition being handy in sales, it's occasionally a nifty party trick. So I'm at a speed dating event, 5 minutes conversation per person, and the woman across from me is an easy read. I managed to accurately guess how long she's been single again, how many kids she had, their ages, their genders, their birth order, and naturally her own siblings' relative birth order and gender. Those are easy for me to guess for almost anybody. At first, she thought it was a prank, that one of her friends had spoken to me earlier and asked me to pull a prank. But after talking to everyone she knew and becoming convinced that none of them talked to me, she started thinking I was stalking her. She started to freak out a bit about it, and no amount of, yo, I'm just good at guessing these things, would calm her down. Ultimately, she went to the manager of the event and asked him to call the police. Fortunately for me, the manager and I had been good friends for years, and he managed to convince her that I wasn't a stalky monster. I no longer use this skill in the context of dating. Story 25. Remembering long strings of numbers or letters instantly. I score insanely high on visual memory tests. I can sort of take a snapshot of something if my mind is clear and recite back to it. This has made me really good at counting cards as I take on the memory palace technique. Everyone should have an in-depth idea of the layout of their house. I find it easier if you imagine starting at the front door and going into all the rooms in your head to lay out a type of roadmap. Then anything I need to imagine, I just imagine being in a specific location in my house. I can then basically reference my memory palace. If I need to access something, it's literally like taking a screenshot and being able to see it in the back of your mind, if that makes sense. Visualization is the strongest technique for memory. Hell, I've had the epic time for when I was born memorized since I was 8 or 9 to be used for passwords. Numbers are a little different than objects in my experience. I seem to recognize patterns to remember them instead of actually visualizing the number.